Super Megafest!
Welcome to the 2024 Super Megafest. My name is David Ciccariella. Well, we're here in Natick, Massachusetts for the Super Megafest. We're going to talk to some special guests and see a lot of cool things. Let's go. I'm now here with Nicholas Hammond, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Oh, I'm really loving it. I love coming to the Boston area, and the people are always so interesting. I think I learn more than they do about some of the shows I've been in because they're such amazing fans. They know every detail, and it's just great. So I love coming here. Plus, I just love Boston.
Did you come all the way from Australia?
I did this time, yeah. I came from Sydney yesterday. The fact that I'm still standing is a miracle.
When you act over in Australia, do you have to act in an Australian accent, or do you keep your...
I usually only get roles playing Americans. So that's kind of my bread and butter over there. Because they've got lots of actors who can play Australians, but not too many that can do Americans that well. So, yeah, that's what I generally do on film, on stage, and in television. And also, there are a lot of American shows that shoot out there now. Just last week, I was shooting an American series called Good Cop, Bad Cop, but it was filming in Australia. So that's the weird thing, is you pick up just as many American shows living there as you do Australian ones.
Obviously, you're here for Super Megafest because you are Spider-Man.
I was the original Peter Parker and Spider-Man. We created the show at CBS all those years ago. And of course, nobody knew then it was going to turn into this billion-dollar franchise. But, you know, on our little limited budget, we had fun and we kind of created something that obviously the public liked, because here we are all these years later. And, you know, they're turning out those movies that are seen all over the world. Yeah. But I'm very proud of the fact that I created the role of Peter Parker.
So the last Spider-Man movie, all the three versions of Spider-Man live action in the films met each other. Did you like the film? And how would you think your Spider-Man, your Peter Parker, I should say, would he get along with the other Peters?
Oh, I think so. I think he'd be sort of like a fatherly figure at this point, maybe an elder who could give him some advice on how to do things or how we used to do things in the old days. And yeah, I think he'd get on very well. Plus, I must say, I think all three of the actors who have played Peter are very good, and I like them all. I think Tom Holland, in a funny way, is the closest to what we were trying to do in the series here. But Andrew's a very fine actor, and Toby is a good actor, and so yeah, they're all lovely, and the films are very good. Obviously, you know, the public loves them, and let's hope they go on forever and ever.
Would you ever consider playing maybe Uncle Ben?
Well, sure. I think that would be huge fun. I'd love to play Uncle Ben. I would love to just even do a cameo walking through the back of a scene, just so the audience at home is going, wait a minute, was that? No, it couldn't have been. No, I think it might have been. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's always cool when people do that.
Now, years ago, when you were shooting the original series, you met Stan Lee. Mm-hmm. How was Stan?
Great. He was wonderful. He was very helpful. He was very supportive and interesting for me. I came into this knowing nothing about superheroes and no idea of how to play a superhero. And, you know, I was quite kind of intimidated because I thought, you know, I'm not like, you know, I don't look like Lou Ferrigno. And what Stan made clear to me was that Peter is just an average guy. You know, he's just a regular guy, and he just happens to have had this thing happen to him. He didn't want it to happen to him. It was thrust upon him, And as soon as he made that clear, it kind of freed me to think I don't have to be anything other than myself, really.
Now, the show still lives on even though you're not making new episodes. There's art, there's action figures. How do you feel when you look at your version of Spider-Man in these new forms that didn't happen when you were originally on the show?
Well, I think it's fascinating. I mean, like I look at this picture of me and Peter, and I think it's great that these days people are still, envisioning that original concept of the show. So yeah, I like it very much.
Other than Spider-Man, what was one of your favorite roles you ever had?
Well, I mean, obviously Friedrich von Trapp, because The Sound of Music has just been so loved by so many people. I also very much like doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and playing Sam Wanamaker. That was a really fun role to do.
Since you brought up The Sound of Music, Christopher Plummer passed away a couple years ago. What memories do you have working with him?
Oh, wonderful memories. He was a real role model as an actor, because I knew I wanted to be an actor, even though I was only 13, 14. And I watched him every day, and I thought, this is the way a really good actor behaves. He was just so good in that film. And I liked him in every film he ever did. So he was really a very significant role model to me. I miss him terribly.
I'm now standing with.
Jeff Walling.
And what brings you to Super Megafest?
It's been a lifelong dream of mine to meet Nicholas Hammond. I've been a huge collector of the 1970s CBS show. I know there's a lot of fan groups out there, but it's always been a dream of mine to finally actually meet Nicholas Hammond in person and show him some of my memorabilia, have him sign a little bit of it. He's my nicest, most gracious guy you'll ever meet. It was pretty special to me. I traveled a long way, about 1,000 miles to be here today just to meet Nicholas Hammond.
You brought a lot of different merchandise to show him and also get signed.
This was actually one of the shooting scripts for the TV show. This was for an episode called A Matter of State, and this was actually the episode that aired on September 12th, 1978. It was the one that actually had Spider-Man climbing the Empire State Building in the episode. This is pretty much, I think, the only existing copy. I've never heard of another one existing. And I got him to sign it. Pretty special to me, for sure.
And what was his reaction?
Oh, he absolutely flipped over seeing it. Yeah, it was a big deal, yeah.
All right, what else do you have?
Absolutely. This was something special to me. I wrote Nicholas Hammond back in 1986, and this was the letter that he wrote me back. I was a 12-year-old kid at the time, and he wrote me the nicest letter. And so this just show you a little picture of the. So this was September 7th, 1986. This was the letter he sent me back. Here are some of the actual press releases that CBS would send to newspapers whenever there was a new episode. They would send these promotional photos with a little couple of sentences telling TV stations that was going to be a new episode, and this was, imagery. If they wanted to post an ad for the episode, this would be like.
So you have the photo with the blurb.
The blurb, yeah. So these are actually taped together from 1978. So you can see, you fold this back, and there's the promotional photo that would have been sent to the TV. So the TV station would have had the photo to include with the description of the episode. This one's for The Curse of Rava, one of the episodes. So you can see there's the blurb for Curse of Rava, and then there's the image for Curse of Rava underneath. There. That was actually filmed at one of the UCLA, I believe. They filmed that scene.
Now, each collector wants to do things different. I noticed you didn't get these signed.
Well, yeah, I wanted just to show them to him. There were other things I wanted to sign, the script being one of them. These were actual promotional shots that were sent when the TV show went into syndication in the 80s. There was a company called Teleworld that would distribute the show in the 80s, and I contacted Teleworld back in the mid-80s and asked them for a package of what would they send a TV station that was interested in getting the syndicated show. And they sent me all the black and white photos. They sent me slides for a slide projector, the folder. And so these are the actual promotional photos that Teleworld would send TV stations for the syndication of the show. And I got Nicholas Hammond to sign those as well here.
That's great. And finally, you have one other piece that it's on the table. I'm surprised you even want to pick that up, how fragile it looks and how rare. Let me walk over here. So
if it's possible, we can somehow get that without picking it up. Yep. This is when the show actually aired in movie theaters. It wasn't in foreign countries and also in England. It wasn't on TV. It was in movie theaters. So they picked the 3 of the best episodes and they put them out as movies. and this was the first movie, the pilot that was aired in theaters in England. So this was the poster for when it was shown in 1977 in theaters in the UK.
And how did you acquire that?
Oh gosh, I want to say it was a poster vendor in 1994 at a San Diego Comic-Con. I want to say I found a vendor that was selling movie posters back then and saved it all this time in hopes that someday I would meet Nicholas Hammond and have him sign it.
I'm now here with Jackson Bostwick, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Absolutely, it's a great. Boston's a good town. I got to find a place that sells lobster. I can't find a place that sells lobster.
Now, of course, you're Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel in Shazam. How was that experience?
Well, I was the second guy in history to play the character. Tom Tyler did it in the 40s, which, by the way, C.C. Beck hated. I loved it. I mean, he's shooting people down, throwing them off buildings and everything. Now, Tom, in the movie, he had a different car. He had the original, with the little sash. Looked like he ought to be parking cars out in front of the Roxy with the button and up there. I'm the first one to wear this costume. And I remember of us going down that Western costume and getting it fitted for me and everything. It's just really did a good job. The cape is pure silk, and as a result, it comes across beautifully.
Whatever happened to that original suit?
I've got it. And it's going to be they're building a museum up in Wisconsin now called the Golden Age Museum. And Captain Marvel's going to be one of the center things. And it's going to be on a mannequin under glass. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful suit.
So you said you loved the original Captain Marvel serials. What did you think of the newer films?
I didn't like them. That's it. I'll put it that way. Shazam is not the name of the character. Captain Marvel's the name of the character. What's a kid going to ask him? He comes up to him, "Hi, what's your name?" And he says Shazam. He turns into the kid. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm curious, when Billy Batson would say the word Shazam and turn into you, how did they do that?
So what they did is they had him say Shazam, and they had a flash powder, like the old things they used when they took pictures. We had coming down in our face and their eyes and everything. He'd say Shazam, and that stuff would explode in his face. And then they'd have me step in to smoke. Okay, then Filmation added it with animation.
Was it nice, though, at the end of every episode, you would talk to the camera, talk to the audience, and give a great moral to the children?
See you next week. That was my idea. I went to Bob Chenault and I told him, I said, "Bob, what we're missing in the show is like the Lone Ranger coming back. Who was that masked man? All of those, they come back and they give a moral. And it's missing." And he said, "Well, the executives don't want to give up the 60-second commercial." I said, "Okay, we'll see." So it comes out. The fan mail was unbelievable. They wanted to see more. He came, he said, "Well, they've decided to go ahead and do it." We shot all 15 of my first year on one day. It was up in Beverly Hills, beautiful lake. It looks like it's up in the North Woods of Canada. And if you look real close on the close, and by the way, they had that last close-up of me that far from the lake, and all I could see was the gate going up and down in the camera like that. That's what I'm talking to. But if you look real close in the background, you see it's raining like that. They had a big umbrella and sun lamps coming right in my head.
In your show, they didn't really have the villains like they had in the comic books. What was some of your favorite villains that Captain Marvel went against, and which one would you love to see your character go against?
I like Mr. Mind. It was good. Dr. Van is okay. Even the old man. But any of that, Captain Nazi, any of those were good. Yeah. Any of those I liked. And I Mr. Tawny the Tiger. Every bit. I had a collection of Captain Marvel comics, the early ones. My mom threw them all out when I went to college. I had a fortune in those things. God love her. I miss my mom, but I also miss my comics.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
How are you enjoying your time here?
I'm having a blast. Good time. Good people. Lots of families. The kids are great. Great show so far.
Other actors who played the superheroes are here this weekend. Nicholas Hammond, Spider-Man, Jackson Bostwick, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, he played Captain Marvel exactly before they changed his name to Shazam.
Did you meet them?
Yes, I did. Very good people, and I grew up watching them.
Very awesome.
I used to watch them with my parents.
I'm now with Christopher Atkins, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
So far, it's really nice. A lot of great people here and a lot of interesting costumes walking around, which is always fun.
Now, obviously, a lot of people know you from the Blue Lagoon. What do you think the legacy of that film is all these years later?
Well, it's amazing to me that there still is a legacy after all these years and that people still want to come by and what's really beautiful now is the fact of how people react to that film. You can just see on their faces how much it brings back memories when they see the pictures. And I think that's what it's really all about is how film and television has implanted or imprinted wonderful memories and all these people who are here, the fans, in their minds and in their lives.
And that was your first movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that was my very first movie. Running Around Naked After Brooke Shields was my very first movie, yep.
You were also in a number of episodes of Dallas. How was that experience?
Dallas was a lot of fun. They were all crazy on that show. They were all old hippies and they were crazy as a loon, and it was a lot of fun working with those people. It was really great. And the best part about Dallas is, of all the over 100 projects that I've done, it's very rare when you do a movie to keep in touch with anybody. It just goes to one movie to the next. And the Pirate movie and Blue Lagoon of the films, every time I run into somebody from the film, it's like old home week. And I've kept in touch with a lot of those people. All the other films know, and Dallas is the same way. I see Linda constantly, and I see Charlene constantly. We were on a cruise together not long ago. We were at the Hollywood show with the whole Dallas cast. That was a big, big deal. And it's just great. Everybody gets together and everybody just says hi, and it's like I said, it's old home week. It's really, really special.
I'm now here with Jeff Brennan, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Doing good. I'm having a good time.
So you're one of the artists here at Super Megafest.
That's correct, yep.
What do you have for people to purchase?
Well, I do a lot of the Courage Pops. I have sketches. I also have a lot of the prints here. My comic book, Cybergirl Lita. I have a little bit of everything.
Tell me a little bit about those Funko Pops. What inspired you to draw on them?
Actually, a friend of mine told me the Courage ones were coming out. There's a lot of Courage fans out there, so I started doing the original art on it, and people like to get, the art on there.
So what's in front of us right here?
These are storyboards. Most of these are from shows I've worked on. The exceptions would be Turtles and Batman. I didn't do anything on those, and Simpsons I did the comic book, not the show.
And what do you do special for those? If people want to buy them, what do you do?
Well, I have sketches. I'll do like an original sketch on all of them. They get an original art plus the copies of the boards on there.
And at a convention like this, which is more of a generalized pop culture convention, what do you think is the most popular seller?
Oh, usually the Funko Pops, definitely. Yeah, they do really well, actually. So.
Is there a certain character that you get requests to draw a lot?
A lot of Courage. I'm going to be doing the Office show in a couple of weeks, so I'm doing a lot of Office Pops for that one, but mostly the Courage ones go really well.
And tell us what you did on Courage.
Well, I was the designer. I designed some of the villains, some of the backgrounds, some of the props, and on the pilot, I did some animation.
I'm now here with Keone Young, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Well, it's just started, and I'm having a good time. I always love coming up to New England. Who's going to point me towards a good lobster roll, eh?
You've been part of so many iconic films, TV shows, cartoons. One thing I like to bring up is the Even Stevens movie.
It was a free trip to Hawaii. That was great. I loved it.
How was it working with the rest of the cast?
Well, when you're working with young people, it's always interesting because you see personalities developing. For example, like I did Different Strokes, and I could tell those kids were in trouble. but you can see, they're growing, and some kids are really talented, and some kids are really smart business-wise. So you see the transition and where they could go and where they, like I did Webster. He was really smart. He was really a good-hearted kid and smart, and he left the business and became a businessman.
You worked on Jack with Robin Williams. How was working with Robin?
Robin was a genius and before his time. He was like a genius when I met him, because I met him when he was really young. and he had just come out of like an improv group or something, and he was just tearing up the town. Everybody was going like, have you ever heard of this kid, Robin Williams? So, and then I worked with Robin when he got older, and he would never shut up. It's like, Robin, it's my turn to speak, but he would like speak for you. You know, you'd open your mouth and he'd like do your lines for you. So you'd have to say, Robin, please shut up. Let me talk. But he was just, you know, his mind was just rapidly going so fast.
Also, you were in the Brady Bunch movie. How was that experience?
That was a wonderful experience because it was directed by a woman by the name of Betty Thomas. I love working with Betty Thomas. Great actress and a great director, who was also in Hill Street Blues, which I was in. I did an episode. And it was also written by David Milch, who is one of the greatest TV writers of all time, and he wrote a series called Deadwood, which I was in.
How did you go from working in live action to animation?
You know, I was the type of actor that I had to be able to do everything, because you have to be able to do everything in order to survive. So when I was young, I trained. My mentor was a great actor. His name was Mako. By the way, Uncle Iroh in Avatar. He told me, you know, you have to study everything, not just acting. But I went to New York. I studied ballet. I studied opera. I studied gymnastics. I studied tap dancing. You know, like be a voice actor versus a stage actor. A voice actor, you need tools. You need dialects. You need to learn language. You need to learn other people's culture. I study even till today. I study languages. I'm studying the Okinawan language, which is much different from Japanese. It's kind of an indigenous language. And I would say that I'm one of the few voice actors that can speak Okinawan.
You voiced so many different characters. What's one of your favorites that you have voiced?
They're like children, my children. And you can't say, oh, I like her better than I like him better than, no. They all are great in many different ways. They all have their flaws. The newest one was in Ultraman Rising, which just premiered on Netflix. It was one of my most fun parts. I play the villain in that. Animated excellently by the Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas's group, and done with Skywalker sound, and it's got a fabulous cast and director and writer.
I'm now here with Doug and Emmy Jo from the New Zoo Revue. And how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Oh, we're enjoying it so much. Everyone's been so kind, and we're having a great time.
And it's great to meet our fans. I mean, that's the main thing. That's the reason we're here. You know, the people love our show, and we're so grateful.
Could you tell me a little bit how the show was created?
Well, I created the show back in 1970. It was off of a beanbag frog named Freddie. And I also created Charlie the Owl, who was a giraffe at first.
Yes.
But a giraffe wouldn't fit on our set. So we changed it to an owl, created Henrietta Hippo, and then Emmy Jo and I played ourselves.
Did you know each other before the show?
Yes, we actually did.
Yes,
did.
we were
Absolutely.
engaged.
Yes, we were.
And we got married right before we went in to do the pilot and the production.
And what was some of your favorite elements working on the show?
Well, I loved the fact that, well, first of all, I had a theater background. So it was very exciting to be doing television, had a big learning curve to make the changes necessary to do really good TV work. But it was thrilling to work with the cast that we had. We had some unbelievable performers on our show, like Sharon Baird, who was in the costume of Charlie the Owl. And Sharon was one of the original Mouseketeers that I had watched. So that was a thrill. And Larry Thomas, who was in the hippopotamus costume. And she, was one of the most famous dancers in Hollywood. So it was quite exciting.
Yeah, and the guy in Freddie the Frog was from Argentina, and so he was also a great dancer.
Did they do the voices after the fact?
No. You know, back in the day, we sunk everything live. All the musical numbers were done live and lip-synced, and then they cross-faded to live studio audio. So it was a challenge back in the day, but we pulled it off. The voice actors were off stage in a sound booth watching their characters on stage. So when the characters heard the voiceover guy, they would move their mouth. So it was we sunk it as we did it, which is unheard of today.
We had unbelievable voice actors, just the best of the best. Looking back on it, we were really, really very fortunate.
Did you have a favorite guest star on the show?
To me, I mean, I cracked up at Joanne Worley. I couldn't keep a straight face. She was on the show, just did an amazing job. One of my favorites was Henry Mancini, the famous composer of all those tunes in the movies. It was fun being in a rowboat, Freddie's rowboat, with him.
Did you work with Richard Dawson?
Richard Dawson
I
did a
remember him.
guest star on the show. He played a knight. It was in a full knight costume. And he was a crack up. I could barely keep a straight face when he was on stage.
What do you think the legacy of the show is so many years later?
What we're discovering is that there were several things. The kindness in the show really translated, and there are lots of our New Zoo kids that have told us that they were had some challenges in their home lives, and we had such a gentle show, such a kind show, and they responded to that, and it was a comfort to them. And then we found that, gosh, a lot of our New Zoo kids were inspired for certain careers through watching the show.
It was amazing because composing the songs back then, it was supposed to be and was a musical comedy for kids, and the songs would further the action like in a musical. And when I composed the songs, I had no idea the impact that the music would have, because every show had a moral lesson, a value that we wanted to impart to the kids, like telling the truth,
Yes.
be kind, just basic stuff. And so we're finding now that those values resonated and still resonate with audiences.
Very, very rewarding to learn the impact that our show had on these little tiny children who are now, many of them, grandparents.
Now I'm standing with Michael Myers. Ooh, wow. He's scary. You're not going to do anything, hurt me or anything, right? No, oh man, he's in character. But who are you really? Uh-oh, here comes the mask, come up.
Anthony Miller, Rampage of 78 Designs, sculptor. I do some sort of like amateur filmmaking. We make Halloween fan movies and stuff like that. And then after that, we'll probably hopefully make something, original. Mainly, I sculpt monster masks and Michael Myers mainly.
Oh, nice. So Michael Myers is your main
That's my main
character.
squeeze. Yeah. We're trying to branch out and make some other stuff, like just like different variations of Halloween masks. I want to have like a big thing of just a bunch of, classic Halloween masks that you would see in stores, the classic witches, ghosts, and skulls, just my take on those stuff.
What's the process like to make these masks?
They start as a clay sculpture, so I'm sure you've seen like an armature, a plastic one, and then you put, you sculpt on it, and when you have what you want, that's when you make a mold. It's usually a plaster mold, 2-part. Then after you dig the clay out of the mold, which is, a little bit more process, after you get the clay out, now you have a big negative in your mold, and you can pour latex in it, and that's how you get Halloween masks.
Very cool. And you said you have a Halloween fan film.
Yeah. We have an American Halloween and an American Halloween 2, which are on YouTube right now. If you go to Rampage of 78, which is my name on there, you should be able to find it. So we're working on 3 now, and we'll see how that goes.
So the process of putting on the mask.
The Michael Myers actor will probably have a lot of prosthetics on under. So these are actually sculpted bigger. So this thing is a little baggy on me, but
And you're playing the role.
So sometimes, I have to because I'm the FX artist. So sometimes within the gags, it's best for me to just play them. If I really need something where I'm like, I need to be behind the camera on this one, we'll do that sometimes. We got some people that fill in for us as Michael.
And here we go. The mask's coming on.
All right, back to character.
And that's it. Now he's Michael Myers again. I'm now standing with the Dark Knight Batman. How are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Excellent. Perfect show.
I love your costume. What version of Batman are you?
Val Kilmer's sonar suit. So far, it's my favorite armored suit of the whole movie franchise. I don't think they've duplicated it. The detail on it is unsurpassed in my opinion. My belief, this is the most intimidating suit they've ever done, the armored version.
I noticed, though, you don't have the bat nipple, so I'm sure that was a choice.
No, this suit never had them. Val Kilmer's first suit did, but at the end of the movie, this was the only suit left after the Riddler blasted the Batcave. And he had this in another part of the cave. This is the last suit he had. It was a prototype. And this one never had nipples, thank God.
And can you see okay out of the mask?
Perfect. I drove here, in fact.
You drove with a mask on.
Yes, the whole suit.
Did you get any looks when you were driving down the street?
Quite a bit, actually.
Do you have anything special with the utility belt?
I have my batarang.
Let's take a look at his batarang. It's a little bit about this batarang. What's so special about it?
Batarang is designed like a boomerang. It's designed to protect me against criminals.
Wow, that's amazing. When was the last time you used it?
Last night.
I'm now here with Butch Patrick, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Super Megafest is super!
Of course, everybody knows you as Eddie Munster in the Munsters, but you're in Lidsville, and this is a Krofft reunion.
It is the kookiest. Yeah, I have actually seen, we had a reunion a few years ago called a KrofftCon, up in Northern California, that I was so happy to have done because I had the idea for doing it forever. And we finally pulled it off, and now I get to see Sid up more often. And we actually had Marty before he passed was there. So it was really truly a reunion. But this is great, yeah, as far as Wes and Kathy being here, and Johnny Whitaker, my dear friend. And then here I am from Lidsville. So we got Sigmund, we got Sigmund, we got Lidsville, and we got Land of the Lost all represented.
What fond memories do you have working on Lidsville?
Well, most of the little people that were in the hats I knew because as a kid actor, you always had stand-ins that were little people. They didn't have another child stand in for a kid. So I worked with a lot of friends. I had the chance of, I never met Billy Hayes before. We became dear friends. Sharon Baird, who was in the Raunchy Rabbit outfit, became a dear friend. Charles Nelson Riley, what can you say about Charles? He became Hoodoo. Horatio J. Hoodoo was a wonderful character. He hated the makeup, but I told him, I said, look, I was in makeup for 2 years. This is only 11 weeks. Just grin and bear it.
The actor, Jackson Bostwick, who played Captain Marvel, is here. You were in an episode of Shazam. How was that experience?
Shazam was fun, yeah. I got to play a bad guy. I was a mean guy who pushed this girl down, and we were, so for me to be, I usually play I can be a brat sometimes, but I never really get to play a real idiot. So that was fun.
Was it cool to be part of that superhero world?
Yeah, it was. It was fun. There was actually there was talk about possibly doing Shazam at the time, but the schedule was such, and then Michael Gray stepped in and did a wonderful job.
Now with the Munsters, there is so much merchandise. How does it feel to see all those new figures come out of the Munsters all these years later?
Well, pop culture is such a big part of Americana, and the 60s was the decade of pop culture, and we were smack dab in the middle of it. And next to Star Trek, probably the Munsters was the most heavily merchandise show. Maybe one of the Westerns back in the day, some of the Disney Westerns, but for sheer merchandise volume, the Munsters really had a lot of stuff done. So yeah, it's pretty cool to look around and see your likeness on a lot of things.
You mentioned the 60s being pop culture. What did you love in the 60s that you weren't part of?
Oh, I was a big fan of Zorro. Zorro was great. Cousin was actually Zorro's stunt double. I was a big fan of Star Trek, Lost in Space, my dear friend Bill Mooney's show. Twilight Zone was my go-to show. I always thought it was very interesting how one guy could come up with all these incredibly interesting things. And then I met Rod Serling, and he was like, wow, he must be from another planet, because he definitely had a look about him that was very deep.
Why do you think all these shows, especially from the 60s, still hold the test of time?
TV is actually a reflection of real time. And today, people will ask me, well, why can't they make shows like that anymore? I go, because no matter how you try to copycat it, you're not living in the same period. And there's a certain feel that goes into shows in the 60s that were very family values and very happier times, and it was just even looking at the cars and the shows in the streets, you just can't totally fake it. You can make it look current, you can make it look back then, but unless you were actually filming it in the 60s, it just doesn't have the same feel, and people just like to go back to a simpler, happier time and reminisce.
I'm now with Johnny Whitaker, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
It is so far mega. Just Megafest. It's really great.
Now, you worked on
Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Could you tell us about who was in Sigmund?
Inside of Sigmund, we have Billy Barty, and he was a little person and a wonderful guy, and he was inside of Sigmund. And then Walker Edmiston was the voice of Sigmund.
Well, did they add his voice in afterwards, after you record everything?
No, no, no. The way that we would do it is on the set.
Now, you were also performed the theme song.
I did the movie Tom Sawyer in 1973. I sang the music in that, and Sid and Marty said they wanted the biggest, newest teen heartthrob to star in his show, and so we said, okay, let's sing some songs. And so we got Bobby Hart, Wes Farrell were the producers and writers of the songs. The first season we sang the song Friends. Nothing like a day out on the beach when all it does is rain. Sid wasn't happy with that because all of the other shows, the theme song has a story to it, and it tells the story of the show. That's when the second season we did, let me tell you a tale, a very scary tale about two boys who were surfing one day. Now, with Sigmund, the sea monster, and Johnny and Scott, our friends, the finest of friends that ever could be on the land or on the sea.
Now, there's a Krofft reunion this weekend. So how does that feel, being reunited with Sid Krofft?
Sid is amazing. He will be 95, and he's still just as spry as ever. So it's lots of fun to have that reunion and be able to share our childhood with you all.
You're also part of the amazing long-running Family Affair show. What do you think the legacy of that show is all these years later?
Family Affair is iconic in the fact that two men raised three kids. There's only one way to have a family. And it was another way to show that families are of all kinds. And this was in 66 to 71 when it was on originally.
How was working with Brian Keith?
He loved kids, and he was just a dear man. If you were an adult and worked with him, it was not as easy. He was, and as he got older, as we all do, he got quite curmudgeon-y, but a good man.
I'm now here with Kathy Coleman. How are you enjoying Super Megafest?
I'm having a ball. I always love coming here. I was born here. So, yeah, it's nice to be with familiar accent. I don't have the accent, but it's just a familiar vibe. There's lots of people been in our raft. A ton of people have done that. Having a good time. Wesley's here. Sid Krofft's here.
How does it feel to be reunited with all the Krofft gang?
It's a trip. It really is. It's to be a part of the world of Sid and Marty Krofft. It's a blessing. You know, we're all very fortunate that when we walked through those doors many years ago that they said, yes, we'll take you and we'll take you. And we all get along so well. And yeah, it's been a heck of a ride for us all. Yeah.
What do you think the best experience was as a child actor to work on that show?
For my friends that were also child actors, they worked on sound stages that just had very small little, like, living rooms for a set. For us, we had two large stages, and one was interior, so the interior, the caves and things like that, and then the other was exterior. So they were literally gigantic jungle gyms. We worked on a chroma key screen, which is like a green screen. So there's where the imagination came in. Like they'd point up at a light fixture and say, okay, that's Grumpy, and we need you to run that way. I'm sorry. And so, you know, you'd have to like go, whoa, and you're looking at that light, and you'd have to come up with some expressions and then take off running in the other direction. Chaka, he was only like a year younger than me, so the two of us used to get into all kinds of trouble and mischief, and we had a blast.
What was the audition process like?
Lengthy for me. I went on 7 callbacks. I wind up having to meet. They first want to interview you, and then they want to see what the chemistry is between you and the other actors, so one at a time they'd come in, and then they wanted us as a group, and then you wind up meeting the executives of like NBC, which was the network we were on, and directors. You meet the director. So it was a lengthy process, but boy, when they ever said you got it, my mom had promised me that she would get me a pony if I ever got a series. So she stayed true to her word. A beautiful lifelong lesson that I learned from that, and I got my pony that same day.
The actor who played your father on Land of Lost recently passed away. What memories do you have of him?
Fond ones. He was a wonderful, wonderful man and a funny man. I have joy in my heart and gratitude that he was a part of my life. I just loved him.
What do you think the legacy of the show is so many years later?
That we weren't just a television family. Like we were actually, we behaved like that. And so even off camera, we have a very loyal fan base. So we have people that just, we raised a generation of children. So yeah, that all of those are contributing factors to the longevity. And believe you me, we all pinch ourselves on a daily basis and say, this is the craziest thing. Who would have ever guessed 50 years later we're, doing this, and we have a blast, and we've met wonderful, wonderful people, thousands of them.
I'm now here with Wesley Eure, and how are you enjoying Super Megafest?
It's incredible. We're having so much fun. And Kathy is so happy. Kathy Coleman played my sister. She's happy. She's back home again, back in Massachusetts. So she's in heaven. All she keeps going is, look at the trees. Look, they're green. Because we live in the desert in Palm Springs, which is 117 today.
And you have a Krofft reunion.
Oh my gosh, Sid Krofft and Johnny Whitaker and Butch Patrick. I mean, come on. It's so much fun. Our creator is here. We're very lucky.
What was the audition process like for Land of the Lost?
It was the easiest ever. It was a Hollywood story. I went to a pool party at Sid's house. A friend of mine at the time, I was on Days of Our Lives, said, hey, let's go to Sid Kroft's house to go swimming. There were like 5 of us, and Sid talked to me all day. And at the end, he goes, you're perfect for this new show. Here's the casting director's card. Call her Monday morning. I want you in. And I walked in and he said, it's yours.
And what was your favorite part as a kid acting on those sets?
Oh, come on. It was every kid's dream, because I was on Days of Our Lives at the same time. So in the morning, I filmed all of my scenes on days. In the afternoon, I did Land of the Lost, because they're both NBC shows. So in the morning, I'm crying that my girlfriend's leaving me, and the mafia's after me, and I'm having all these problems. And in the afternoon, I'm going, run, Holly, run! There's a dinosaur! And so it was the best job ever. And Land of the Lost, we filmed 2 episodes a week.
Wow.
We only had 2.5 days to film an episode because it was Saturday morning. They didn't have a budget.
The actor who played your father recently passed away. What memories do you have working with him?
Spencer Milligan was amazing, and we missed him terribly. I've always said the Kroffts didn't just cast my TV family. They gave me a real life family. Kathy and I are like brother and sister. Phil Paley's like my brother, and Spencer was like my papa. So we got the news 2 days ago, and it's tough.
And what is the legacy of the show so many years later?
It was such good sci-fi. It's 1970s effects, no CGI, but it was written by the Star Trek writers. David Gerald, Trouble with Tribbles, was our head writer. Walter Koenig, Chekhov, created Enoch, the talking sleestak. D.C. Fontana, Larry Niven, Spinrad, and Mike Westmore, who did all the monsters for the Star Trek, the early days in the movies and stuff. He did all of our monsters. In fact, one day, Kathy and I are at the Star Trek convention at the Rio in Vegas, and I'm not paying attention. I'm sitting at my table, and somebody takes his head and lifts it and walking away with it. I go, hey. I go, oh, it was Mike Westmore. He looks at this, goes, this is really good, because this is a fan-made.
Why do you think things from the pop culture from the 60s and 70s are still popular?
Because it's memories. We all go back to that bowl of cereal in front of a TV in our special time on Saturday morning, and it was just a simpler, gentler time, and the stories were not, the kids weren't, it wasn't about the kids wisecracking that much. It wasn't about them, being smarter than the parents. I mean, in Land of the Lost, Holly was one of the first girls to ever sort of become like not just a tomboy, but she saved our lives. They didn't play her as this little innocent, helpless little child. She actually became, and so for a lot of women that come up to Kathy's table, they go, you were my first idol, my first person I could look up to.
I'm now here with the legendary Sid Krofft. How are you enjoying Super Megafest?
Oh my God, thank you so much. I mean, it was a big trip to come here, but it's amazing, because the last time or the first time I was in Boston with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus in the sideshow as the world's youngest puppeteer. 1946, everybody. And I'm still here to tell you the story.
How old are you now?
Next month, in about 35 days, I'll be 95.
You, along with your brother, have created so many iconic shows, and this weekend is a Krofft reunion. How does it feel to be reunited?
The 50th year of Land of the Lost. Can you believe that? It's amazing for me. I mean, 50 years old.
Wesley told me you cast him directly.
Yes, I did. A friend of mine brought him to my pool for the day. I hadn't looked at anybody yet, and I kept listening to him speak, and I said, hey, call this number tomorrow because your will. And that's and then he chose Kathy because that's what I wanted, to make sure that he felt it was his sister.
You have created so many characters for all these different shows. Did you have a personal favorite?
Well, of course, they're all I'm the creator. Marty was the business end. And so always your first child, H.R. Pufnstuf. Of course, it's my favorite. And H.R. Pufnstuf actually came from a puppet show that I did at the San Antonio World's Fair for the Coca-Cola Company. And it became the number one attraction there. People stood in line for 4 or 5 hours to see the show. We did like 9 to 12 shows a day. It was a 25-minute, extravagant, big, epic show. When NBC, after we did the Banana Splits, which was Hanna-Barbera, the head of programming came to me and said, you're insane, and I know if you come up with a show, we'll buy it. And that's how I came up with H.R. Pufnstuf, because that character was already created in the puppet show. That's how television began for me.
Was it good your brother was working one side, the business side?
So much was going on. All of our live shows at all the Six Flag Park. We had a park in Atlanta, the World of Sid and Marty Krofft. Of course, we did Donnie Marie and the Brady Bunch Hour and Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sister. It just goes on, yeah.
Run through real quickly how the stage would set from, say, creating a character. Would you draw out the character first and then go from there?
I never spoke to anybody until I totally locked the idea in my mind. And in our show business factory where we built all these things, because I was also the creative head for 9 years of all the Six Flag parks. We built their rides or whatever they needed. And so I had 25 artists, and that was my office with the artists. And I work with them all day long. And when I came in with an idea, I set them all up in a little group, and we'd all start drawing. I was also, for 29 years, a performer. I had a puppet act. I was the opening act for the biggest star in the world. It was her first national tour, Judy Garland. I toured with a lot of huge stars, Liberace, and the list goes on and on. I also played here in a club called the Latin Quarter.
You've worked with so many different actors on your various shows. Butch Patrick, who was on Lidsville, did you cast him because you saw him in the month?
He turned it down. No, and I had to take him out to lunch. He'll tell you the story, and I talked him into it. He said, I can't do a show and talk to hats. It sounds stupid to me. And Charles Nelson Riley, I met him through Rip Taylor, and I called Charles Nelson Riley. I thought he'd be perfect for The Magician. And he said, I love you, Sid, but you're going to end my career. I'm not doing a kid show. But I talked him into it.
A lot of your shows, all your shows actually, had a very good moral and great lessons. How important was that for you to put on the show?
Very, very. They wanted me to be really educational, but I did it in a total different way. I want to entertain them. I want to give them something that is theirs and something that they will remember, hopefully, for the rest of their lives, and they did. Here we are 50 years later. Ladies and gentlemen, Can you believe it? Can you believe Will and Holly? Will and Holly.
Run, Holly, run! There's a dinosaur. And all of this came out of your brain.
Oh my God! No wonder I'm so whacked out.
Oh my God! Look at there.
Oh my God!
There's a sea
Oh,
monster.
Johnny Whitaker.
Yeah.
Come on, Johnny Whitaker.
I mean,
You believe Sigmund and the Sea Monsters? I found him on the beach, not Johnny Whitaker, but Sigmund. I do have a picture of me, Johnny Whitaker, and Billy Barty. I'm putting Billy Barty in the suit, and that's the dresser. And then this man is standing there ready to call the police because he said, I'm not on drugs. What is going on the beach? You know?
But Sid, the question was, were you?
Well, come on. If three presidents said they did not inhale, I did.
Well, that was the 2024 Super Mega Fest. And as you can tell, this is an awesome Comic-Con. I hope you come next year. My name is David Ciccariella. Thanks for watching.